Welcome to this episode of the Innobooters podcast brought to you by ifb.net, all about people who have got strong connections to Aberdeen and the northeast of Scotland, but finding out more about those connections and why they're connected to this area and this region. And as always, we ask our guests to introduce themselves. So over to you to tell us who you are, what you do, and who you do it for.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation, Graham. It's great to be here on a very cloudy Friday afternoon. So my name's Sheryl Newman. I'm the founder and CEO of, formerly known as Appetite for Business. We've just rebranded, as you may have seen, back to Appetite as of yesterday. But we are a Microsoft 365 consultancy. So we help organizations to take the ecosystem that they have, and through strategy, skills, software, and security solutions, we help them to complete a full ecosystem. So just helping the people to be more productive, helping to be more efficient, and also now helping to introduce AI into transforming businesses really in a whole new way of working. So that's basically what we do.
That's the best sales pitch we've had so far in the podcast. So well done.
Thank you.
And I wouldn't expect anything less from you. So tell us why you're connected. What's your connection with Aberdeen in the northeast of Scotland? Is it personal? Is it business? Is it a mix? Why are you connected to this area?
So I was basically born in the Blue Toon. So I was born in Peterhead, so 34 miles up the coast. That's where I grew up into my sort of younger early years. And then my dad got moved through to Aberdeen for his job. So as a family, we moved through here. Apart from 1 year where I was at university and I studied abroad, I have lived here. I've created my business here. I went to university here, and I've never left. I've never really had a reason to live. I love being here. I think for me, I have a natural affinity and connection to the sea. I love being beside water, and so I think for me it gives me the best of both. I've got that love, but also I think where Aberdeen's located as well is so great just to be able to get out to the hills or to go walking. So yeah, I've never seen a reason to move.
In that affinity with the sea, is it because where you were born and being right up against the coast there? Is it a family thing? Is there sea salt in your blood? What's the background there?
Do you know, actually, there is. My grandfather, who sadly I never met. So my dad's family is obviously from Peterhead. There's a long history of them there. But my grandfather was actually a fisherman and he owned a ship's chandlery in Peterhead. And very sadly, he was relocated during the Second World War, and his boat was used for transferring army modifications and things like that. And so very sadly the boat got bombed. We know where it was bombed, but unfortunately the bodies were never recovered. But yeah, he was obviously that whole side of the family was involved in the fishing industry. So I think that's where the natural affinity actually has probably come from. And also I always used to say to my family, I don't understand, I'm the only person in the family that's self-employed. And I never understood where that came from. I didn't understand where that real drive and determination to just do things on my own came from. So, but now I understand it. It came from him.
So it's in the genes, you think, not only the love of sea, but the love of doing your own thing, running your own business.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely unemployable now.
Like many of us, let's face it. So I think that story and the connection. You moved to Aberdeen. You did university a year abroad. Where was that? But you came back. And how have you plotted out the journey to be where you're at now? What got you going in your own business?
So it's kind of quite interesting, and I never anticipated ending up in a tech role. So I always had a love of technology. I'm of the age, and you'll probably remember this. My dad came home with a BBC computer, and it was like huge, this big thing. And I loved how it connected with people in that piece rather than the coding piece. But when I was at school, our careers advisor always said, tech's for boys, it's not for girls. And I wasn't interested in that coding aspect to it, so I couldn't see at that point a route into the industry. So I went with my second passion, which was languages. So I ended up, funnily enough, studying. I have a master's in German, which is hugely not very useful. But when I graduated, I didn't want to go into something utilising that skill set. I fell into a job. I just took a very simple temp job, whereas my colleagues were like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I want to learn. I want to start earning money. I want to learn, and this is the only way I'm going to do it." And then I found myself being employed by a very large American IT tech company, and I just fell in love. I fell in love with the how people and processes and technology could all connect together, and I thought, this is it. I've kind of found my love. I had wanted I think, sorry, just to jump back a little bit, I had originally thought of doing journalism, and I had planned to go to journalism college in London because I have a real love of people and their stories and how they got to where they are. But unfortunately, due to personal health circumstances, that wasn't a available option for me. So that's why then tech became the new focus and the dream, really.
And that working for that big company, was that something that moved you beyond Peterhead and Aberdeen and let you be part of something that was really global? Or did it feel like that, or?
Yeah, it was so exciting. As I say, it was an American tech company. Within 6 months of working with them, I was approached to go and work with BP on all their new flagship projects. So it was really, at the time, it was, I'm going to show my age here, but it was when eBay first came out, and we actually had a project with eBay and how it could work and how people were connected to the system. And it really opened up a new world for me, and I got to travel quite extensively. So I was in Alaska, Houston, Oklahoma, so I was constantly moving around, and it was just so exciting. And I think that's why my passion now as well is to encourage other women into this industry, because there's such a depth and breadth to what you can do now. It's not about coding, and business solutions where you can really add value. So I think that's what got me really excited, and why I'm still excited today with all the new emerging technology and what it can do to help people personally as well as to businesses as well.
It's a really interesting point you make in terms of the technology is all about the user. That's how we view it as a business as well. It's about the customer, it's about the user, it's about what benefit you add. It's basic sales stuff. But you mentioned when you perhaps got into that technology, and I think the Americans were definitely ahead of the curve, they're still not brilliant, about women in tech. I think there was a lot more women in tech in that side of because tech was slightly more mature there. What was that as a challenge to you? Was it eyes open? You could do anything within that organisation, or do you feel they could have done more to cultivate that?
I think when I was in my early years in the industry, I always remember when I worked at BP, there was a lady who was in charge of the IT department, and she was known as the ball breaker. I mean, men went into her office and they came out in tears. And I don't know if that was a perception, that was how she felt she had to be. She was a very formidable but a very talented and a very clever lady, and I had a huge amount of respect for her. And I remember being invited into her office one day, and she said, "Can you tell me about this?" And I just said to her, like, "I honestly don't know, but I'm going to go and find out." And she said, "Please keep that. Please don't ever change that, how you present that way, because that's how you'll gain respect in this industry. If you don't know something, admit to it." So I think for her, my direct report at BP was also a female, so I had some very strong females who were leading the way and who were opening doors to allow others like myself to walk through. So I had great mentorship and a role model to aspire to be. But I think, and I've always never been one for taking no for an answer, I'll find a way to do. So I didn't have that, perhaps that glass ceiling that perhaps many other people did in enterprise organizations, because then I broke out to be in a smaller business. I think mentorship and role model is very, very important, and we still have to keep showing realistic, achievable role models in our industry now, because then I think it will encourage more girls to come through the doors, and also women in the industry to feel that they can aspire to be more too. I think that's very important to keep that message strong.
It's a really important part. I mean, I'm at the different side of the fence because I'm pale, male and stale. You know, I am atypical IT engineering background, but from day one when we founded the business here, not only have we done it internally, I've tried my best to do it externally through working with Scotland IS and Scottish Women in Technology and all these other things. And I think it's not perfect. It's still not perfect. But I think the concept of a woman, a powerful, intelligent, capable woman in the workplace needs to be a ball breaker. I think those days are gone now. I really do believe that. I think you're just one of the team now, and you're making a difference, and it's the difference you can make that people respect.
Yeah, and I think as well, as females, we shouldn't ever downplay the strengths. I think a diverse team is a strong team.
Absolutely.
We all bring different skills to the table, but as a female, we perhaps bring other softer skills, perhaps, which are equally as important. Being vulnerable, as a leader, I think it's very important to say if something, just to be honest and open about something. And I think that gathers respect, because it's a different world we live in now, and I think it's a much more collaborative, much more open world. And I think it's very much changed, since the kind of late 80s, early 90s, and it's a good thing that it is too. But I still struggle sometimes. I went to a meeting last year, and someone asked me when my boss was coming along.
Okay.
So
just tag in behind that conversation, yeah.
Yeah, so I was
But
just
it
like,
does happen.
yeah,
It's ridiculous how it still happens. I mean, the telecoms industry is worse than IT, for lots of reasons, and that's how it's been. And I still take great delight at taking the first photograph at a telecoms conference from the back of the room to see how many bald heads you see,
yeah,
and it's getting better.
yeah,
And I think there's a transition now. People are aware that things are different. Not they need to be different. And behaviour has changed without a doubt. Sometimes it can go too far the other way, and I'm not just talking about male female interaction. I'm just about interaction in general in the workplace. But
absolutely.
I think, you've got some great accolades from Appetite's point of view in terms of a great place to work. And how have you? What's that culture of behaviour? What's that behavioural culture been that's enabled that
To happen. I think we've all worked in workplaces which have been toxic or difficult or challenging and felt that we're not supported. I have a disability. I'm quite open about that. And I think there's a place for everyone because everyone's got different skills depending on, and we can't just look at someone and then disregard them. So for me, it was really important that people could come to the office, feel that they could bring their whole self to work, whatever that looked like. And they would be championed and supported and encouraged to be that person. Because if they can be naturally that person, then they will service our customers correctly because they will feel safe and supported. And that was something that was non-negotiable for me from day one. I'm not saying I always get it right because we don't, but
No.
we've worked really hard. We worked on our values. We created them together as a team, so everyone had a voice. Everyone's always had a voice in the business. Even when we're looking to grow our plans and our strategy, they get a say into what we're doing. And I feel that's important. So they've got a platform to enable their growth in addition to the company's growth. And that's always been it's always been my mantra since day one.
Great. And is that what drove you to form? You're working in this big American IT company, you're flying all over the world, you're feeling empowered, you're working with great other women, great other people, you're into technology, but you're making a difference with it. So what led you to go, I want to do my own thing? What sparked that?
So the first transitionary step was I was actually approached by another consultancy company when I was working there. They were thinking of forming a new business and they asked me if I would join them, which was a huge step coming from something which was quite large and quite corporate. But I think there was always that little part of me that was like, maybe there's a chance to make a difference and do something else. And I mean, to be honest, I've always been quite driven. I had my first job at 13 wheeling toffee around the doors. I think I ate more of it than I actually sold, but it gave me a lot of determination and resilience, and I quite like that ability to earn for myself and to do things for myself. So I think that was always in me. So yeah, I joined them. I left on a risk, and I remember crying actually with my husband who worked in the same company, the carpet, going, "What am I doing? What am I doing?" He's like, "You're going to make it happen. Whatever. Don't worry. You'll figure this thing out." And I was with them for 10 years, and then naturally we had the energy recession in Aberdeen, which was really, really tough. And business partner and I at the time, he wanted to do something else. He had another business, and I said, "Look, why don't I take this over and try and run with it myself?" And that's what we agreed to do between us. And yeah, so therefore then the business was mine. I had no idea how to run a business. There's no textbook or guidebook for running a business, certainly not in recessions or pandemics. But I thought, do you know what? I love what I do. I love the customers that we're working with, and I'm going to give this a good go. So it wasn't premeditated or planned. I just kind of fell into that situation and just ran with it.
And was there any point when you did that, Friday afternoon, you and your business partner agreed to part ways. Monday morning, you come in and open up the office on your own, 8:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
What have I done?
Yeah.
Was there any? I know I've had moments like that. When did that hit you? And how does it hit you?
So I'll tell you, it was probably a delayed response in all honesty, because literally 1 week after the business was mine, my mum was diagnosed with terminal cancer. So I think all the worries of what am I doing were kind of diverted, and it became a real enabler and a real focus for me, because it allowed that distraction from what I was dealing with at home and personally. So it gave me a focus just to shut all that out. And actually, I think it's a really positive thing. So it was a real driver and allowed me to move forward. And we had made great strides in that first couple of years. I think it was year 3, I probably thought, whoa, how did that? I think just when I had a minute to think and to process. So I think for me, it was the shock of my personal situation gave me the driver to enable me to not even worry about what I was doing. And I kind of felt like, being very honest, I'm probably way to lose a huge influence in my life. What's the most worst thing you could have in your life? So if this goes down, at least I've given it a good crack. So I think it took away that fear for me, and I just cracked on and got on with it and just made it what I could. Yeah.
Sometimes I'm a great believer that age is a privilege.
It is.
And I think we take it for granted. The younger you are, the more you take it for granted. And I sound like a really old grumpy manny, but but when you think about it that way, it does exactly what you've just said. It's an enabler to allow you to go, right, not how much more time have I got left? What am I going to do with my time today, tomorrow, this week, this month? What difference can I make? And whether that's personally or in the business, it is a big driver. I mean, if you could have a top up of time in the bucket all the time, it would be an amazing thing. But it's how valuable it is.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. I've never been scared of failure, Graham, because when we were growing up, my dad used to sit us down when we came home from school and we'd say, oh, this happened today and it was really exciting. And he'd be like, yeah, but what did you fail at today, or what didn't you try at today? So I was always built with that, give it a go, try, and if it doesn't work out, that's okay. It's not a failure, it's a lesson that you've learned. So I always have been brought up in that way. And still to this day, my dad will be like, oh, I don't want to hear about the bad stuff. Like, what's going on that's good, and what are you getting after, and how are you going to fix it? Give me the solution, not the problem. So I'm being very fortunate to be given that grounding. So I'm not. I mean, it's very lonely, as you'll know. It's very, very lonely, and sometimes the decisions you have to make are very difficult, and it's hard to know if you're making the right decisions, and it's considering everything. But mostly the pros outweigh the cons, but it can be difficult at times. I'm not going to deny that.
Absolutely, and I think I think the startup culture that we've got is sometimes masks the reality of running a business, and a business that has to make money, has to pay the bills, has to be profitable, rather than just a fact. And there's nothing wrong with startup. I think the economy needs startup, but if once you're in it and you're paying 16 or 18 people's wages or salaries, and they all look to you to solve those problems, or you think you're carrying that around inside your head, and it pops up for me, it pops up at the strangest times. It's not about waking up at 4 a.m. I'll be walking the dog down the beach. I no longer have my father. He died in 2002, and I sit there and I wish I could talk this through with my dad, because he was completely objective. He didn't care. He seen me. He used to say, "I've seen you naked, so you can tell me anything." So that was a leveler.
That was the same as me with my mum. It wasn't that she was a smart, intelligent business person. She was just a very practical person, and she was removed from the situation, so she would give a viewpoint. And you're right. And it was about 2 hours ago, I was just talking to someone, and she said to me, "Oh, as a business leader, you often have to put yourself first and think about yourself." And I said, "But when you've got 15 or 16 people that you're responsible for, you have to take that very seriously." And I do take it very seriously, and I need to look after them too. And that's always been my priority. But you're right, startup culture is often exemplified as it being lots of fun. You can go to the gym at 9 and do all these things, but it's graft and hard work and worry and stress. I think we're very fortunate now. Probably when you and I started, we didn't have that, but we've got things like One Tech Hub now, which is giving that support to businesses, giving that grounding, showing role models, which you and I just had to figure it out for ourselves. So I think that's good, but I think you're right. There still need to be some level about it. It's not all roses just running in and running a business when there's a lot of responsibility against it.
I think those forums to talk about things out loud. I know we spent some time together through lockdown. You remember the online sessions with We Do and Belinda. It's just a forum sometimes that nobody's judging you. I don't know you. We're not in competition, but I know you get the problems I've got. There may be a slightly different colour, but there are those same problems. And I think that's true for any avenue of life. I've got 3 grown-up children. I'm very lucky that they're all doing what they're doing. But just getting some one-on-one time with them now and again, walking the dog and chatting it through, and it's back to what you're saying. I'm not interested in the negative stuff. Tell me about the positive stuff. And if you spend your energy in the positive stuff, you'll deal with the negative stuff and it'll work itself out.
Yeah, I often find that. My husband says this to me. He said, "Do you know, you've got the biggest problem in the world, and you'll just get on and you'll deal with it. And it's something so small, it'll just send me over the edge." Something so minute that no one would care about, and I'd be like, "Oh my goodness me, what's going on?" Sue,
my wife, is best person in that, because it's like, oh, just get on with it. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? And then it's fretting about something that's going on in the garden. So that talk about personality traits. What do you feel is your most important personality trait? And do you think it's a Northeast thing? Do you think it's something that you've been just instilled in you right the way through your life?
I think so, and I think coming from the background I come from as well, and it's very that quiet determination, hardworking, just crack on, just get on. And there's a great quote, if you've seen it, I love it. You know, when you come through the arrivals hall in Aberdeen Airport, I don't know if it's still there because I haven't, what it just says about the Northeast, the Toonsers and the Tuchters, and how we're all genuine, heart, warm people who want to help, but just quietly get about their business. And I think that's how many of us are in the city. We just quietly get on and do things. I don't know if it's a UK thing or if it's where, you know, we're very reserved and we don't really like to talk about success or talk about these things, and we just kind of just get on with stuff. But I think it's very indicative of the Northeast, definitely.
And it's one of the drivers. It's one of the drivers to do these podcasts. I mean, I've been itching to do a podcast for ages, and it's actually my daughter who's going, not that theme, not that theme. And she said, I would listen to this theme. I would listen to people that I've maybe know about. I'm not in business. She's not in business. She works for a corporate, so she is in business. But people I've maybe heard about, but I don't know their story because I just read their marketing. And their marketing's all the same. All our marketing's the same. Hey, we're brilliant. Come and deal with us. But when you lift that layer and why you're connected, that's why we've done this podcast now.
I think, do you know what was really lovely for me? And I noticed it through. Hopefully, people will. With me, what you see is what you get. And when I'm on LinkedIn, I'm a lot on LinkedIn, as you'll know. But I'll say the good as well as the bad. I'll be honest. I won't hide it. And I think during lockdown, there was quite a number of people who did contact me saying, thank you so much for being honest about where you're at, because it's given us hope and positivity that we can all do this together if we're just being honest about how we're feeling. And I don't know if it's an Aberdeen thing where we always have to put our game face on all the time and everything's wonderful, but I think when we have these closed groups of honest conversations, I think it's better, it's more transformational, it's more supportive. And it's more energizing because we all know that everyone's struggling with the same issues and the same problems, and together we're not alone in that respect. So I think for me that's quite an energizing thing, but I think it's something that's not common in this area to be able to openly talk about.
Yeah, and I think having done work outside the area in other sector, in this sector, but in other geographies, it's not uncommon for people to feel they can't share the downside as well as the upside, and that can be punching the air and whooping, and actually there's a lot going on there. It's how you share that, how you recharge, how you charge, decompress and impress, I suppose, is the thing there. And we're better at it. I think you mentioned the Tech Hub, but there are so many better forums now in Aberdeen that you can pop into, and you might be feeling crap and not wanting to go along, but you'll meet some people who will naturally lift you.
And that's the thing. I think it's finding the people around you that lift you up and give you that energy and that determination. And I think it's finding those people around you. And I think there's quite a community in Aberdeen of these people that do exist and are doing good things and are helping to make the city a better place. And that's what I love about it. And you know, we talk a lot about Aberdeen, and you see it on the Facebook groups and everyone's complaining. But for me, it's just, you know, don't be the problem, be the solution. Come, if you've got a voice, come and take it. Come and use that energy and put it into something good. We're never going to be what we were in the 1980s, right, or 90s. We're never going to be that city. But we can be a different city, and we can be a better city. And let's do it together. Let's not just all be apart. Let's come together and work together as a team to change things.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe in that theme, you know, we're both geeks, right? We're both a bit nerdy. Through your travels and sat here today and looking back, what piece of tech was game changing for you? What piece of tech is the thing that is favorite for you, or changed the game for you as you were growing up and then working up?
Well, if I can talk about now, I suppose this is more, I don't know if it's personal, but it's also personal work. I love my iPhone. And the reason is I'm always on the go. I'm a classic type A. I never sit still for a minute. I've got a very low attention span. I do listen, but I've got a very low attention span. So I love it because when I'm sitting waiting to go into a meeting, for example, I'll maybe listen to a podcast or I'll read a book. or I can check my emails if I want to. So it's having that multifaceted tool that can help me. I've also recently just bought a Remarkable because I've got a million notebooks. I'm a very unorganized person. And I'll lose notebooks. I mean, everything stays in here, but that's not good. So I've just bought a Remarkable, which is amazing because then I can transfer my notes onto my PC and I've got everything there. So that for me has been a game changer. In industry, what I think is going to be a game changer coming forward now is AI. And the speed and development of that is coming. We were already obviously working with Copilot, and we've been doing extensive work in the States for this over the last year. And the ability to just find information, share information, collate information is going to be a game changer for every single one of us. But it's certainly a new way of working that we're all going to have to adopt and learn to use safely. So I think those would be my personal things, and also something that's industry is going to transform. It is going to be like they liken it to the Industrial Revolution. It is going to be just that absolute game changer in how we operate as businesses and as humans.
And do you see how, it's a great answers, thank you. Do you see that AI when it starts becoming predictive, that you come in the morning and it's worked your week out for you, and it's communicated that to everybody else that's been there, and it's managing workflow and workload and work life. That's here. I know that's here, but that's become more profound. Do you think people will see that happening, or is it just going to positively sneak in, and just start happening?
I think there's a fear that it's going to take away people's jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe in some jobs perhaps, but actually I think it's going to be an enabler, because it's going to help people to be more focused, more productive, to just manage tasks and workflow more efficiently. I think it's slowly sneaking in now. It'll start to become more, this is slightly different, but I just saw a post from one of my friends who's in San Francisco just now, and she was in a driverless car. That just blows my mind. And she did a little film of being in this car, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness me. But that's AI in itself, isn't it? It's all these. Yeah. So I think it's come on the last 2 years. It just suddenly feels like it's just arrived.
Yeah.
But whereas it's probably been quietly in the background for so long, but now it just feels like the acceleration is just going to just go.
Yeah.
Which feels
and it's
scary
going to be practical.
And exciting in equal measure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I can't remember, it's Chris somebody or other who's the CEO of GitHub, and he said that the most common coding language in the next 36 months is going to be English, because you can code in English. I can go and tell a bot, an AI, to write me a piece of code that does whatever I want it to do almost. I don't need to code.
No.
And that's... Now, the danger of that is if you don't know how the code's put together, but the upside of that is people will experiment more. You can see that happening.
Well, there's already cases just now where you've got developers who are using ChatGPT, which obviously is an insecure platform, and they're already sharing companies' IP to try and code their jobs, and that is a risk. That's a real issue that people are going to have to address sooner rather than later. So yeah, you're right. There's lots of things to consider and to think about and plan for.
But an experiment with, I think that's the main thing.
Experiment with as well.
Yeah. Sheryl, it's always positive speaking to you. It's been uplifting. I'm glad our backgrounds match as well. I know pink features a lot in what you do. So we're going to close.
What I do.
Yeah, absolutely. So as always, we're going to close off with 4 quick fire questions, if that's okay.
Of course.
D side or C side?
C side.
Start up or scale up?
Scale up.
Do you prefer teaching or learning?
Learning.
And last one, buttery or fine piece?
Fine piece.
So we're back to 50-50 between butteries and fine pieces.
I'd have them both if I could, but if I had to choose one, I'd go for the fine piece. Sweet tooth always wins out.
Absolutely. Understood completely. Sheryl Newman, this has been fantastic catching up with you again. It's been great to hear your story, and thank you for joining the Inabooters.
Absolutely. Look forward to hearing it, and thank you so much for inviting me, Graham. Thank you.
You're welcome.